delicious. That is a beautiful, delicious cup of coffee on a kind of overcast morning here at the Jersey Shore. Here for a little check-in with all of y'all. As you can see, I'm on vacation. I got my skin. It's a little bit sunburnt, a little sun-kissed. My hair's got sand and sea salt in it. And I wanted to check in with all of y'all because yesterday, Monday, was the feast of St. Augustine. And I think St. Augustine is the ultimate example for people who are looking to get back on track with Jesus. People who've maybe fallen away, felt like they've fallen away from the faith a little bit. And I say felt like because all of us are on a journey. All of us are in some sort of journey with Christ. And it's never going to be perfect. But a lot of times when we're on the outside looking into faith communities or people who we think are very holy or people who look like they're doing really well, we can feel like, man, I am just like, I am not good enough. I'm not even worthy enough or good enough to be on the faith journey. Or I feel like I can't be on the journey. And I think St. Augustine is the best example for people who are looking to get back on track or looking for someone who maybe feel like, well, what is it like to, go on that journey from growing up Christian, falling away from the faith, and then going, to the lengths of following Christ. A little background on St. Augustine. He grew up in the 300s in what's common day Algeria. And he grew up a Christian. His mother is Saint Monica. She's also a saint. And he grew up knowing the faith and how to the faith, but he fell away. And he got involved with some, people who were anti-Catholic, who were anti-Christian, who were saying the Bible's not true. This is the reason science is our answer. And all of these different reasons of why following Jesus is not worth it. And he was a scholar. And he was leading some of these charges. People looked to him and said, dude, Augustine, you are intelligent. You are someone who's going to lead the charge against all these foolish people who are following Jesus, these Christians. But he never stopped listening to that voice in his heart. And I want to speak about that voice. I think that voice, Jesus' voice, our conscience, that's in all of us. And wherever you are in your faith journey, maybe you feel like things are going really well. Maybe you feel like things were going well a few months ago, but now you're stumbling, you're in a rough patch. Or maybe you feel like you grew up Christian, but you never really bought in. And now you're just an adult and you're, wondering where you fit into the world because you never really bought into all that Christian stuff. But that voice never stops, does it, right? I know I've experienced that in my life where the ups and downs, particularly in the downs of my life, when I've had times of great sin or great, I would say pride or great things, selfishness in my life, different eras of my life. That voice never stopped. And I was always like, what is this voice? What is this voice? Well, that's the same voice that was speaking to St. Augustine. And this is the voice of Christ that's always constantly inviting us back in. Always inviting us to dig a little deeper. Because the world, even when they say, hey, that stuff's not true, following Christ is not true, the Bible's not true, Catholic's not true, Christian's not true, don't even worry about it. We're going to really show you how to dig into this world. We're going to really show you how to understand this world. And Jesus is saying, hey, go, understand the world. Understand the world through science. Understand the world through people, because the more you understand, the more you dig deeper, Christ lies beneath that. So it's like you can never truly run away from Christ, and that's why that voice is always in our hearts. So I've heard that voice in my life kind of call me back. Pete, where are you? Pete, where are you? And I'm like, God, is that you? Remember that line, Zoolander, the movie? God, is that you? That's what I think that voice can feel like. And St. Augustine heard that voice. And as a guy who was an intellect and a scholar and someone who was just, being a man of the world, he didn't listen to that voice for a while. But then little by little, he said, okay, I can listen. I'll listen more to this voice. And something drew him to go to Rome. So, okay, he has this voice in his life. He's fallen away from the church. He's fallen away from his Christian life. And he never stopped listening to this voice. He had this little voice inside of us, that voice that we all know that kind of draws us back, that says, come back, that says, go to confession, that says, forgive your enemy, that says, fix that relationship, that says, stop that sin, that says, maybe that's too much, that says, go back to Mass. That voice that says these things, he had that voice. And it drew him to say, come to Rome. So Augustine, who is away from the faith, goes to Rome. and he meets St. Ambrose, and he hears St. Ambrose speak, and it completely changes his life, because he said, I'm a man of the intellect. I'm a man that's like super smart and educated, and this guy has blown me away by his intellect and his, speaking skills, and he's compelled me and convicted me to follow Christ more. St. Ambrose did that. That voice never stopped knocking on the door of Augustine's heart. And he responded to an invitation to go somewhere, and he met St. Ambrose, then he heard this talk, and it drew him to learn more, and then all the dominoes started falling to lead to the man that we know today, which is a doctor of the church, a great philosopher, an intellect, one of the great minds of, the past 2,000 years. Like, outside of even the Christian faith, he's considered one of the great intellectual minds, writers, thinkers of who's ever lived. So, wherever you are in your faith journey, you hear that voice, right? That voice that says, go to Mass, forgive people around you, go to confession. That voice that just doesn't stop, and that kind of is in when you're quiet, maybe going to sleep, maybe you're driving, maybe you're a little stressed, maybe you're happy, and you hear that voice that's calling you deeper, calling you, drawing you in, calling you back. That's the voice of God, and that's the same voice that spoke to Augustine. So you got to think that Augustine had a lot of doubts and reservations. But what about my career? What about my reputation? What about all the things that I've already built? What are people going to say? I'm a respected scholar, and in my industry and in my world, in my society, what are people going to say? But he responded to an invitation of that voice, and people in the faith convicted him and compelled him to give his life to Christ more and more. So, what does that mean for all of us? Well, I think, one, we all have that voice. And for some of us at different times of our life, it's louder than others. But we all have that voice that's calling us to go deeper. So respond to that voice, because it's never going to stop. And that's because it's the voice of Christ. It's not just fables from your childhood reminding you of different times. It's not just like synapses in your brain firing off and saying, hey, draw closer to Christ, or forgive, repent, leave sin behind you. That's not just your brain. That's Jesus' voice in your heart. So let's all respond to that voice. Number two, let's make sure that we're still inviting people let's invite people into our lives, into the faith. Let's never cast people out and say, hey, you're too lost, or you're too sinful. That is not true. And Jesus would never, ever, ever tell us to build a wall like that between people. So if you feel like you need to invite someone into the faith more, you feel like someone is looking for the faith and they come to your path, might be up to you. Might be up to you to call them deeper. Think about St. Ambrose. Maybe St. Ambrose had a busy day when he met Augustine. Maybe he had a lot going on. Maybe he had to pay his landlord. Maybe he had to prepare for that speech he was about to give. But he met Augustine and he invited him to the talk that he was giving. And he reached out to him. Ambrose probably had a lot of different things going on. We all have a lot of different things going on. But let's never say no to inviting people in more and more who want to know a little more about the faith. We have to have open doors. We have to have open arms. And trust me, I'm compelled by that. I'm trying to do that more and more. I'm trying to talk about my faith more, not only on, videos and stuff like this, but out in the world, out in, my life, my work, my friends, my relationships, people I'm meeting. Try to talk about Christ, invite them to church, invite them to, Bible studies. And I'm still trying to figure that out. So I actually don't have that all figured out at all. But I know I'm feeling compelled to talk about the faith more with people in my life and invite them into a deeper relationship with Christ as I continue to deepen my relationship with Christ. And then finally, I think what that story of St. Augustine means, where he kind of gave his life to Christ, is that Christ's mercy and Christ's power is so much greater than our sin, and he's never done with us. A lot of times we look at our lives and our current state of our lives and go, this is it. I'm just a sinful guy who's destined to be nothing here in this terrible relationship with these terrible people, with these terrible circumstances, with all these terrible things. Oh, I'm just sad, I'm depressed, all these things. God's not done with us. God is not done with you. Christ is not done with you. So you might not be happy with your circumstances right now, but I promise you this, Jesus is not done with you. And St. Augustine is the perfect example of that. He could have been a great scholar in Northern Africa, and that's it. Would have been a great scholar, maybe in some history books. But Christ had a much bigger plan for him. And he's now like a legendary thinker, not just a popular thinker of the time. He's a legendary thinker and a doctor of the church. A guy who's done more good for the intellectual traditions of our faith than many people. God wasn't done with Augustine. It didn't matter that he had a ton of sin. It didn't matter that he had all of these things that he wasn't ready. Jesus wasn't done with Augustine. So wherever you are in your life right now, feeling good about your faith, not feeling good about your faith, you're in a rut, maybe you're far away, maybe you haven't been to church in 12 years, maybe you haven't been to confession in 10 years, maybe you don't like any people that you are faithful with, maybe you don't even know what the Christian faith is. Jesus isn't done with you. Where you are right now is not where Jesus is trying to bring you. He's trying to bring you somewhere else. And it's going to be great, and it's going to fulfill your heart, and it's going to be different. It's not just going to be monotonous, nothing. My life is meaningless and hopeless. Jesus has a plan for your life, and he's not done working on you. So when you see this, if you see this, send this to someone who Christ is not done working with, because it's probably everyone. It is everyone. If you see this, Christ is not done working with you. Christ is not done working with me. And that excites me, because I know that no matter what is happening in my life right now, Christ has stuff even better for my life, and he's not done working in me. So that's why I think St. Augustine is such a great example for those who've fallen away from the path a little bit, those who are on the path, but for all of us who are on the journey, because we're all on the journey. So Augustine is the best example for the faith, all of us on the journey. That's my Jersey Shore check-in. That's my Jersey Shore check-in on this kind of overcast day, my morning coffee. But I felt, like I wanted to make a video for this Tuesday upload and talk about St. Augustine, because I was so compelled by his feast day yesterday. So thanks for watching this. Make sure you share this with someone, like, subscribe. I would appreciate if you shared this or felt compelled to share it. Share it with someone who needs to see this. And yeah, reach out, leave a comment, tell me what you think about his example. Talk to y'all later. Bye.